I call Grant Robertson.
Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak in this debate on the economic development and infrastructure ideas. And I want to pick up where the Chair of the Commerce Committee left off, and that was talking about the importance of exports to the New Zealand economy. And I think right around the House we would all agree that for New Zealand to succeed, we've got to lift our game when it comes to exports. That's where we're going to find the industries that are going to drive high-value jobs, going to give New Zealanders the standard of living that we want our future generations to have. And so the government set itself a lofty goal. It was actually a promise, and that was to lift the percentage of GDP that exports constitute to 40%. Now, I note in the report of the Commerce Committee on this that it was described by the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment as, quote, an aspirational target. That's an interesting change of tune. It's not actually an aspirational target, Mr. Chair. It was a specific promise of this government that it would lift exports as a percentage of GDP from about 30% when they came into office to 40%. And where are they today? Around about 27 or 28%. We're going backwards under this government when it comes to exports. We're going backwards on the very thing that will help generate the kinds of high-value jobs that New Zealanders want. Right. And the government complacently sits there with exports at the moment being approximately still 80% from primary industries, many of which are unprocessed commodities leaving our ports. That's not going to grow the kind of future New Zealand that our children and our grandchildren want to stay in. We've got to have a greater aspiration than that. And once upon a time, the national government had aspiration. Once upon a time, they said they were ambitious for New Zealand. But now we're going backwards. There's absolutely no ambition among New Zealanders among the national government for New Zealanders, particularly when it comes to the export target. But don't worry, Mr. Chair, because hidden here in the report of the Commerce Committee on the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment is the government's big strategy and plan for economic growth. Wow. It's called here an agri-business hub in Saudi Arabia. Now, for those not familiar with this genius economic plan from the government, it involves giving approximately $12 million to a man named Mr. Al-Khalaf. Now, Mr. Al-Khalaf was given this money to set up his agri-business hub in the desert. Many people around the House and perhaps listening won't be aware that the sheep that were flown over to set up this agri-business hub actually belonged to Mr. Al-Khalaf in the first place. So the taxpayer paid out to get the sheep from his farm in the Hawke's Bay, got them on a plane, may as well have put them in business class seats because that's how much it costs to fly the sheep over there. A sad part of the story is many of the sheep died on the way. Those that didn't died when they got there. We had some dispute with Nathan Guy about whether it was a sandstorm or not that killed them, but they did. In the end, though, the agri-hub, the money just kept flowing out of New Zealand. Murray McCully called it a facilitation payment. Well, there's another word for that. It begins with B. It has the letters I, R, B and E after that. And that's actually... Mr. Chair, here in the report of the Commerce Committee on the annual review of MB is a description of the agribusiness hub in Saudi Arabia. And Mr. Chair, this kind of approach from the government is appalling. It's about looking after their mates, it's about looking after those at the very top rather than hard-working New Zealanders supporting and investing in the regions of New Zealand. Here we have $12 million being pushed offshore to Mr. Al-Khalaf in the vain hope that he will somehow support a free trade agreement with Saudi Arabia, which doesn't actually seem to be going anywhere at all, Mr. Chair. And we await with interest the Auditor General's inquiry into the agribusiness hub in Saudi Arabia because it is murky. And it finished off most recently, Mr. Chair, with the payment for an abattoir in Saudi Arabia, and no sheep there, but they've got the abattoir. That impoverished group of people the Saudi government have been now given by New Zealand an abattoir, because it's actually not possible for Mr Al Khalaf under Saudi law to own the abattoir himself, and so we had to give it to the Saudi government. So this, Mr Chair, is the best the government can do in terms of an economic development strategy for New Zealand, according to the review that we have here, is to throw away $12 million on the vain hope of some kind of payoff. That won't happen.